The after-work ritual never changed. Jake would slide into the same booth at Murphy's Tavern, methodically arranging his notebook and pen, then signal the bartender for 2 Iron City beers. Because in Matthew's chaotic world, he'd show up eventually, Wolfman's brother by the guess, who cuts through the usual chatter as Matthew bursts through the door 15 minutes later, already talking before he'd even spotted Jake across the room, phone pressed to his ear, weaving between tables with his usual scattered energy, while still juggling his conversation and frantic note-taking. Greybeard, Matthew calls out as he reaches their booth, then immediately reaches over to grab a pen from Jake's jacket pocket, scribbling something on a napkin while still mid-phone call. Matthew never has a pen, but he always has 3 pencils behind his ear. Wait until you hear what happened with the propulsion calculations today at Divide and Sons, he continues, finally hanging up the phone. Easy there, old head, Jake replies, sliding one of the Iron City beers across the table. Finish your call before you redesign the entire ship in the doorway. As soon as Matthew hangs up, he looks around and really hears the music for the first time. Wolfman's brother. I didn't peg you for a Guess Who guy, he says, grinning and pulling out his notebook. Jake nods toward the jukebox. You kidding? Burton Cummings knows how to build a song. Speaking of which, ... He glances at Matthew's Queen's Rock shirt. Didn't peg you for prog metal either. That's when Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner starts flowing from the speakers, and both men freeze mid-conversation. Jake's systematic mind locks onto those intricate arrangements, while Matthew's scattered thoughts suddenly find their focus in Iron Maiden's epic storytelling. Well, Jake says, raising his Iron City. Looks like we've been keeping secrets, haven't we? Their Navy days had taught them both discipline, but in completely different ways. Jake had thrived in a structured environment. Everything had its place. Every procedure had its purpose. Matthew had somehow managed to excel, despite constantly pushing against the boundaries. His scattered genius finding ways to innovate within the rigid framework. Now at Divide and Sons shipyard, those same dynamics played out in civilian clothes, but with added pressure neither discussed directly. Jake had known for months. The award committee had been watching their joint projects, recognizing the breakthrough innovations that emerged from their partnership. But Matthew remained completely oblivious to the recognition coming his way, too focused on the work itself to notice the accolades gathering around their achievements. The deadline for their latest project loomed just weeks before the award ceremony, and Jake found himself carrying the weight of that secret knowledge while watching Matthew push himself harder than ever. What made their brainstorming sessions magical wasn't just their complementary skills. It was how Matthew's mind finally found focus when Jake was present, especially when the right music played. At home, Matthew's digital collection shuffled so randomly through his albums that he never really absorbed anything. But something transformed when they sat in that booth together. You always got it together. You know that's a narrative for this whole thing, Matthew would say constantly throughout their sessions. Watching Jake transform his scattered concepts into coherent designs, while the clock ticked toward their project deadline, and Jake would always respond the same way. Well, you're the chaos, man. Brother, you have no idea. You're the chaos. But Matthew never really heard him saying it, too absorbed in whatever breakthrough was forming in his mind, and the pressure to deliver their best work yet. Their home lives reflected this perfectly. and created the most beautiful contradiction imaginable, even under the stress of their approaching deadline.